Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. And I'm back again doing another model preview. This week, I am previewing the wide receiver position on DraftKings. And I made a new model to check out some wide receivers that might be good plays, some wide receivers that are popping for specific reasons, and I think it's really helpful to kind of look at guys in different models. And that's one thing I always want to emphasize is that I'm building a variety of different models for different positions and for different things like cash games and tournaments. And I think that's one of the really cool things that you can leverage with FantasyLabs. So let's dive into the model that I made and why I made the model this specific way and look at some of the receivers that might be good plays on DraftKings. So we have bargain rating at 5 points. This is something I'm baking into the model a little bit. I bake it more in when I'm on FanDuel because I think DraftKings pricing is more efficient. But it is something that I think is good to bake into your model. In addition to that, I have Vegas score at 10 points and opponent rating at 10 points. These are two stats I'm looking at quite a bit. You always want to be cognizant of what Vegas is expecting for the teams in terms of production on the scoring side. Obviously, there's a ton of value in that. And then in addition, I love looking at the matchup. And this is one way to look at the matchup is with the opponent rating that we have here at FantasyLabs. I have projected points per dollar at 34 points, and I have projected plus minus at 25. This makes up the majority of my model, and there are two stats that I use a ton. I really think we've made a big improvement with our projections this year. It's something we're very proud of, and I'm using the projections quite a bit to make my lineups. And I think that it's something that can be really helpful for anyone, and it's a great slider to bake into your model. I love projected plus minus as well. That's a proprietary stat we have here at FantasyLabs. That's super helpful and very predictive. It bakes in the salary as well, which, as you can tell here, it'll make guys really rated high, even if they're not the top overall expected scorers. So taking into account the salary is obviously a huge aspect of DFS, and this is a great stat to do that. I projected ceiling at 6. I projected floor at 4. Looking for both of those things. Obviously, the best players have the highest floor and ceiling, but I do like to bake those into the model just a little bit. And I believe that's the last thing. That's not true. I have one other slider marked up, which is market share percentage, which is a really cool stat. Basically, we'll take a look at what percentage of the market share per position that the player has. And I think this is something that we can really leverage. Shout out to Brian Mears, too, here at FantasyLabs. Did a great article that you can take a look at and visually see the percentage of targets and snaps that each player is playing on each team. So that's another piece of FantasyLabs content that's been really helpful for me. So that's the model here, and as you can tell, there's some interesting guys at the top of the model. We have both San Diego receivers right now at the top. Both of them represent really good value plays, in my opinion, going against Jacksonville. Feel really bad for Keenan Allen, who I thought was in for a monster year. Tore his ACL, which just sucks. I hate injuries in sports. I'm recovering from a Achilles rupture myself right now, and I can't even imagine having my career take a huge hit with an injury. So hope Keenan Allen has a quick recovery, but obviously he's not going to be playing again this year. So Benjamin and Williams are two guys that are going to see a huge uptick in market share and targets and everything. So they're rating really well, and both of them could have nice games here. I definitely could see it. I think I like Benjamin a little bit more. He does have a really high ceiling, in my opinion, as well with his speed. Speaking of Achilles ruptures, we have Steve Smith, number 3 in this model. I've been saying I'm going to fade all the guys coming back from Achilles ruptures. I probably won't have too much Steve Smith. I think I'm going to favor Mike Wallace in this spot, but certainly don't hate the call. Steve Smith, I don't know how he's doing it at 37 years old, I believe. 9 targets against the Bills. Did catch 5 passes for 19 yards. Not a great, obviously, yards per catch. But still, I think Steve Smith could be a nice play, but I'm biased. I'm not playing anyone coming back from the Achilles injury that I'm going through. Larry Fitzgerald also rating really high. Had a great start to last year. Looks like he's on pace to have another great year again. Definitely like his price at $6,400. I think he's another really good play here on DraftKings. Antonio Brown, best receiver in the game. Don't need to talk too much about him. It's just a matter of you can fit him or not. I guess the debate will be him and Odell Beckham, who I like a lot as well. Still trying to decipher who I think will be the optimal play. I'll have exposure to both and hopefully get both of them in some lineups. But yeah, it just depends on how much you want to stack the Giants, who I think are in a really good spot. Will Fuller at 4,200, guy I'm very bullish on for the whole year. Ton of speed coming out of Notre Dame. Loved him in college football DFS. Not sure this is the best possible matchup against Kansas City, but someone's going to do something in that game for Houston. I know Kansas City's defense was great last year. They did not look as good in week one. We'll see what happens in this game, but I do think Fuller's an intriguing option, but tournament only for me. Marvin Jones, who we all had in cash, or who was the most popular receiver in cash games last week, did go up in price, but 5,500 still really nice. I think he's going to be very involved. Only ended up, if we take a look here at his game log, only ended up with 4 catches on 10 targets for 85 yards. So could have been a much bigger game. With that game style and the pace of that game, I thought he'd have an even bigger day, but still ended up with a decent line and could have been much, much better. I think we'll see him be a big player in DFS all year long in that offense. Vincent Jackson at 4K. Patrick Peterson's probably going to shadow Mike Evans for the majority of the games. That will help out Vincent Jackson, but I'm still scared of Arizona and will be fading Vincent Jackson for the most part. And then we get some value guys. Michael Thomas, who I think has a lot of upside. I love him and Sterling Shepard, who's just a little bit farther below in that game. 2 rookies I'm very high on. I really like Terrell Pryor if you're going to stack him with McCown, who is mid-price. Love Willie Snead. Tajay Sharp, another rookie who we should be paying attention to. 11 targets. He turned it into 7 catches, 76 yards at 3K. Still a really nice price for him. So just kind of looking through the rest of the model. I mean, you'll see some other guys. I talked about Odell Beckham. I think he's going to be right there with Antonio Brown as a top receiver this week. I really like him a lot. Julio, I'm recording this on Wednesday night. So Julio is dealing with that ankle. I think he'll be fine, but he's not in the same class, in my opinion, this week as Odell Beckham and Antonio Brown. I also really like AJ Green. So Julio is a tournament play, but he might go lower owned than we'd expect given his ankle issue. Let's see, going through here. AJ Green, I talked about. I am really high on AJ Green. Love Kelvin Benjamin as well. This is a guy that I'm definitely going to have some exposure to as Kelvin Benjamin. Going to the Bronco game, I was very impressed watching him play against, in my opinion, still the best defense in the NFL. We have an amazing secondary, and he still got 12 targets, turned it into 6 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. He passed everything in terms of the eye test and played a ton of snaps, which helps people feel more confident that he's, moving forward and moving, past the injury he dealt with last year. So DeAndre Hopkins a little bit lower and tough matchup for him, but we'll see how it pans out for him. Allen Robinson, another guy who I think has a tough matchup, but I could see some high upside there. Let's see if there's anyone else that I really want to talk about. Brandon Cooks is not rating as well in this model. We have him projected for a little less. I do like him in this game, but his price has really come up. And there's going to be a lot of recency bias on Brandon Cooks. He had that huge catch, and he did end up with 6 catches, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But this is a spot where a lot of the new players might be paying for him rather than some of these other guys. And I don't hate it, but at the same time, I think you can get more bang for your buck and just a higher floor with someone who's going to be less owned than Brandon Cooks. So I think he's a good play, but not a great play this week. Congrats to those of you who had him last week. And then there's some other guys just projected down here. Mike Evans, who I like a lot this year, just has a tough matchup. I talked about it. Doug Baldwin, we could see him bounce back. I don't mind that play. I talked about Mike Wallace. Eli Rogers is another guy that I like quite a bit. In this spot, I think he's going to be really involved in the offense all year long. Loved what I saw from him on Monday night. So hope this is helpful for you guys. This is, again, the model. I think it's really important if you're doing this on FantasyLabs, if you're a subscriber, make sure you're building a ton of different models and see who's consistently popping and for the reasons why they're popping. So hope this was helpful for you guys. And as always, looking to see more FantasyLabs subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.